About a year ago, when the COVID lockdown took place, I started noticing more and more emails coming out from the superintendent that would incorporate words like equity and diversity.
CRT actually, I wasn't aware of it when it first started. First time I became aware of it was when I met Scott, and that was only because I was trying to talk about opening up the schools. And when I went there, Scott was there talking about CRT, and I was like, what's CRT? And then when I started to listen to him and I went home, I actually started to hear my kids talk about it, like implicit bias, systemic racism. I'm like, really, what's that?
She got in the car one day and said, hey, Mom, are you a member of the KKK? And initially I was shocked by that. And I said, well, what did you learn?
You kept hearing these new words, anti-racist, equity, ally, white supremacy. As I say, it used to be white supremacy was you were part of the Ku Klux Klan. You thought you were superior to somebody based on the color of your skin. Now, white supremacy is, you drive a Jeep Cherokee. And so they changed these words, and I started wondering what exactly is going on.
So my parents escaped from Cuba, communist Cuba in 1961. I'm one of 6 kids, and we were brought education is important. This is how you make a difference here in America.
If you look at the civil rights movement, it was all about integrating, right? Blacks can use the same bathroom as a white person. Now it's almost like they want to separate graduation classes or kids in a classroom because of race, and that's just taking us backwards.
We can't change the color of our skin. This is the way that God made us. So by creating this platform of skin color and race, you are taking away our freedoms.
It's like pulling a thread on a sweater. Is the more I looked at the documentation, then researched certain elements of phrases or phraseology, if you will, in some of these documents, the further it took me. And the more I learned and the more I got angered.
And I did a little more digging and found out that LCPS spent close to $500,000 to bring in this consulting firm, the Equity Collaborative. This is a giant money-making operation. The consulting firm that they hired talks about culturally responsive learning as critical race theory implemented. They talk about liberalism, meritocracy, and equal opportunity as white power. They talk about whiteness as property. These are the people that the taxpayers have paid to come in there and essentially rework the school system in the name of equity. If you are an anti-racist, you look at somebody and say, it's not enough for you to be not racist. You need to be anti-racist, which means you need to be working every day to find the racism in everything you see and call it out.
When I look back and I reflect on my own life and my parents being first generation, Chinese Americans here, they always fought for the value of merit, meaning you work hard, never give a person a reason not to hire you or to promote you. And through that, you're going to prevail. Asians have predominantly done really well because there's been a focus on education from the foundation of the family.
I push my kids to exceed in school. I don't care if I'm Cuban, American, whatever. They need to work hard. They need to get good grades. And by implementing equity, you are removing this hard work ethic.
Instead of trying to find a way to lift up students to get to the point where they would apply there, their solution was to just bring the rest of the students back down to the pack by getting rid of admission standards, by getting rid of meritocracy. I attended a virtual school board meeting, and that's where they presented their equity plan and their plan to dismantle systemic racism in Loudoun County Public Schools. And there were a few things in there that caught my attention. First, their admission changes to Loudoun academies, where they were no longer going to be having geometry as one of the criteria, or there were fewer tests, fewer recommendations, and the basis for that was ultimately that there was too high of an Asian population at Loudoun County, at Loudoun academies, and that they needed to reduce the gap between Asian students and black students.
When I started to hear about dumbing down the school system so that math was not going to be offered for higher level students that were in a better position to advance themselves, or magnet schools basically saying, we're going to have to equalize the system. We can't have all these Asians. And I also want to make sure that there's an opportunity for my daughter to succeed, because she's still got to get through LCPS. And she is in all the advanced classes, and she's doing extremely well. She's in Algebra 2 Trig as a 9th grader. Well, you can't have that anymore. You know, everyone has to be in the same en masse, right? And you know, I guess in a way that's kind of like a form of socialism in a way. So from that standpoint, I just said this is something that we need to really address and stop, because I don't know that this is going down the right path to help this country if everything's just equalized and everyone is supposed to share based on a demographic or divide everything by race.
In this anti-racist Facebook group, Anti-Racist Parents of Loudoun County Facebook group, they started to form over 600 Facebook members. All of a sudden, my friends are like, Patty, look, they're calling you a racist. And then all of a sudden, the bombardment of screenshots started coming. There are 6 school board members in that group. There were the principal at my son's high school was in this group. And the Buddha Booberage, who is the Attorney General for Loudoun County, the Commonwealth Attorney, all of those people in this anti-racist Facebook page wanting to shame and intimidate us because we want the best for our children. We don't agree with their philosophy of separating by race. I was one of those that was blacklisted. They put 3 pictures of me in there. They named my first and last name. They named who I'm married to, where my son goes to high school. They wanted to come to our homes with a megaphone and call us racist. They wanted to send a postcard to our neighbors and call us racist. What kind of county has this become?
I realized that this school system is creating a culture of bullying in the school, in the administration, in the school board, and in the community. And they're doing it under the guise of equity and culturally responsive learning.
So I was really surprised to sit there and look at the school board creating a list against parents, because it's almost like a form of McCarthyism back in the 50s. You know, if you don't agree and think like me, then you're going to be blacklisted and you're going to be outed. And I really found that disappointing and, you know, un-American, you know, just to sit there and say, I'm going to target you because you don't think like me. Because again, it's an echo chamber that they live in, and they think everyone needs to think like them. And I just find that really unappealing.
When you see Loudoun County Public Schools and their Minority Student Advisory Achievement Council sending out a statement, a week or so after this list-making activity saying, we have the numbers, we can and will silence the opposition. This is the school saying that.
These aren't people who are interested in good faith debate about ideas, about concepts, about anything like that. These people have a very evil, quite frankly, narrative that they're trying to push, and I've been disgusted by it.
This is all of our constitutional right, and they want to silence us? That reminds me a lot of what happened to my parents in Cuba, and I'm not going to stand for it.
There's a lot of fear to come out and speak out. You know, even my own family said, hey, you know, are you sure you want to go talk about this? Because the last thing you want is to be isolated and then say, hey, you know what, you're a racist.
This is what critical race theory is. Ultimately, it's cancel culture. Cancel culture is critical race theory. I mean, that is a tactic of critical race theory.
So you're not going to see one person jumping up, screaming up and down saying, hey, I'm for critical race theory. They don't do that. They all lie and deny it exists.
They've got nothing. They can't argue the points. They can't argue the facts. All they have at the end of the day is, you're a racist, you're a fascist, you're a sexist. All they're good at doing is calling people names, and they use that to silence the opposition. That's it, right there. That's the whole tactic.
We don't have a school board that is really looking out for the best interests of the kids. They're looking out, I think, for special interests. We have to draw a line in the sand, and this is our ground zero where we've got to really combat this issue.